Okay, so we need to separate out a lot of things here. It's really important. It's really important to separate things. There's bad stuff happening in the world, okay? And there has been now for a couple of years, to the level that it's saturated the news cycle with fear-based reporting, okay? These are two things as separate. There are bad things happening in the world, but let's put that to one side, right? The news media is utterly saturated with doom and gloom and has been for a number of years. So clearly there's no chance of that relenting. And it soaks into our access to devices, and then there's a constant need to know what's happening, in Ukraine. It feels like it's close to home. And so subsequently, because it's close to us, it's gripped our attention in the same way that the pandemic has, right? Now, and then the other thing is this, is that then lives in our head. So these are three separate things. One is bad stuff happening in the world. Two is the news media saturated with fear-based, relentless cycle. Three is us picking that up and that going round and round in our heads. And then the sort of thing that happens is it dominates conversation. You talk to somebody and you end up talking about Ukraine, just like for the last couple of years. You talk to somebody, you end up talking about coronavirus. None of that is necessarily bad, but we've got to be able to switch it off like that and come back to now. Okay, so now one of the things that has happened, interestingly, is that over the course of the last couple of years, the whole concept of mindfulness has become diluted. This was inevitable. This is always the way. What happens is organizations and vested interests and corporations capture a concept and they use that concept in a way that benefits them, and it dilutes the original concept. And so what mindfulness really is, it's been turned into a fuzzy pink blanket, cloudy woo-woo. You simply need to know, you simply need, when thoughts come to the mind, simply let the thoughts drift away. Just go away from the thoughts. And when the emotions come up, just don't notice, just simply let the emotions drift away. What fantasy world do these people live in? The perfect example of how that doesn't happen is happening right now with a relentless fear-based news cycle that's churning round and round in everybody's head. Simply, so what I should be able to do is sit here and say to you all, if the Ukraine conflict comes to your mind, simply let the thoughts drift away. And of course, that's never going to happen in a million years, because what you need to do is to train your mind to bring it back to the undistracted awareness of the sensory experience of now. And this is actually, now we see the sharp end of mindfulness. This is the power of the capacity to become aware that your mind's been captured and return it to now. And do that repetitively and continually. And what happens then is you become alert to the awareness that your mind has been captured over and over and over again. And over again, you keep coming back to now. So what I thought I'd do today is to focus on all of the most useful techniques. And it's very similar to the biohacking class that I did a few weeks back. But the perspective is from the perspective of us dealing with the relentlessness of Project Fear. Because I don't know if you remember, back in the dim, distant past, before coronavirus, the other thing to be terrified of was Brexit. Remember that? And then the other thing was the rise of white supremacy and racism. Remember that? And so it goes on and on and on and on forever, and it will. Because what you're seeing is the death rattle of the legacy media. Two things are happening. One is that they've got less and less people trusting them. You only have to detect an outright lie once. This is the wonderful thing. You only have to know that they're lying to you once, and that's it. You then no longer believe the BBC, the Guardian, the Telegraph, the Mail, whoever it happens to be. You're then skeptical. Being skeptical is good. Being cynical is not good. Skeptical means question everything. Being cynical means I don't believe in anything anybody says as default. We're all liars. But be skeptical. So people are more skeptical, and so subsequently there's two things happening. The number of people who unquestioningly believe what they're told by the news media and embed it in their brain is diminishing, and the news media is focusing harder on them. Just look at the viewing figures for BBC. Shrinking. Yeah. So they can see this happening, and so they're trying harder to hook in more people and keep you focused for longer. So the headlines become more shrill, and everything becomes more graphic, which is something that I've noticed. Being somebody who hasn't watched a night's television since 1996, one of the things that really shocked me, because I never saw any television and then this popped up into my life, was the Twin Towers and watching people jump out of it. I'd never seen anything so graphic, but all the people around me didn't seem to be affected by that, but I was shocked by it. And there's a thing called the Overton window, which is the window of acceptable discourse. It's not just about language, it's also about what you see. And it just gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and there's more blood and guts and horror. And I've seen enough blood in my life for real to actually not want to have it rammed down my throat by this media. And so it becomes more graphic, and there's more fear, and it's more relentless, and it appears in every device. But way back in the day, they'd just try and push advertising on you. Now they try to push news on you, because it's a secondary process. Get you hooked into the news, and then you're absorbing the advertising. If you're not absorbing the advertising, you're absorbing some PR that's been inserted there by somebody. As somebody that used to distribute PR for a living, I can tell you that 80 or 90% of news articles are written for the journalists by a PR agency and disseminated, which is why you read exactly the same thing in every newspaper. Yeah. Switch off the telly, give yourself a curfew. How many times a day do you need to know what the progress of the conflict is? If you really care, one. And I'll tell you why. Because news information arrives at different speed from different channels from different places. They've arrived at Kiev. No, they haven't. They've taken the airport. No, they haven't. Yeah. Once a day, what happened the previous day? That's all you need to know if you want to keep up with it. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're stuck in the uncertainty of the fear-based news cycle, which is even worse, because you add uncertainty to fear and it elevates it. So now, having said that, all of this is happening to us, and you're walking along the road and up pop the images of whatever it is you've seen. Notice I'm not saying don't consume the news, I'm saying reduce it. If you chose, and I can tell you this for a fact, to never consume news, you'd know exactly what was going on all the time anyway. Yeah, because it appears when you're online and it's rammed down your throat and people tell you about it. So you're as well informed as anybody who watches the news by not watching the news. You walk along the high street, there's all the headlines, you know what's going on. I've never seen a Kardashian, but I know all about them. A Kardashian, an image. So you don't actually need to absorb it to know what's going on. So now the mental practice is, so this is a good thing. It's a good thing that you have a relentless, repetitive process churning in your head, asking you questions about something that actually has emotional impact. So why is that when I've just said that it's not helpful? And the reason for that is it's practice. It's how this is an ideal way of how we can practice returning our attention to now and switching off the inner narrative, because it's potent enough for it to be around, it's relevant enough for it to affect us and have an emotional consequence. What we're actually doing then, when we practice on something like this, it's real. It's affecting our day and it's generating anxiety. And all of those things, that's what we want to be able to intervene in. So this is like the advantage of living in London is your capacity to cope with difficult people is infinitely superior to somebody that lives in a picturesque village in the Lake District. That's why they don't come to London. Or if they do, they don't stay, they go away. And then they talk to each other about the horror of the experience of coming to London. Quite understandably so. But here we are, and so we've got this endless supply of difficult people that we learn to cope with. We learn to cope with the consequences of it, which is how it affects us. So, like I've said a few times, the master carpenter only needs one thing, an infinite supply of wood. Bit of wood, cut it. Is it perfect? No. Move it along, cut it. Is it perfect? No. It's closer to perfect each time you cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it. And then eventually it's perfect. And it's perfect almost all the time. And so with this relentless news cycle, which is feeding our inner narrative, is an opportunity for us. Yes, bring on the narrative, bring on the relentless, fear-based, folk devils, bogeymen, horror, etc. And then we learn bit by bit by bit to squish it. It doesn't mean we never think about it. It means it hasn't taken over our minds. That's the main thing. So this is to remind us what the present moment looks like, having said all of that. The present moment is in the sound of that bell, only if we notice its movement through time. Just staying with the sound of the bell. And checking in with your body. And noticing the movement of the breath. And ideally, adopting an open, balanced and relaxed posture with your elbows by the side and head balanced comfortably on the spine and feet flat on the floor. And notice the passage of time. Noticing the passage of time is evidence that we're in the present moment. Okay, so here's one of the most powerful tools to intervene the in a narrative when it's unhelpful for our happiness. You get to choose. You get to choose what's helpful for your happiness. But if there is a narrative that's unhelpful for your happiness, it only takes a second to do two things, one of which is to check your body posture so that it's an open, balanced, and relaxed posture, and then connects to the breath by noticing the breath. And there's this breathing pattern that I teach, which consists of 2 short in-breaths over 2 seconds, and then we gently hold that for 2 seconds, and then we breathe out for 6 seconds. If you place your tongue against the back of the top teeth, so it's in contact with the sharp part of the bottom teeth, breathe in for 2 seconds, hold it for 2 seconds, and allow the body to relax the breath out for 6 seconds. And to count seconds, we count 1 1,000, 2 1,000. So it's 1 1,000, 2 1,000 on the in-breath, 1 1,000, 2 1,000 gently held, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000 on the out-breath, and repeat. And we do this for 12 breaths, so you can just move the finger on your hand each time you complete one, and then the next finger and the next finger and the next finger, and you're able to count up to 12. You do 12 of those, and you've been doing it for 2 minutes, and you've fundamentally changed your physiology, and will go a long way towards intervening in any repetitive process in the mind. So if you just want to practice that for the next couple of minutes, I'll set 2 minutes on the session tracker. Beginning now. And allow yourself to become aware of the breath. The most frictionless way is to notice the rising and falling of the belly and be aware of it as a continuous process. And then what will happen is the contents of the mind, the narrative in the mind, will continue in the background. So we're noticing the breath, and whatever thoughts there are will arise. When we deal with thought in mindfulness, we don't deal with the content. It doesn't actually make any difference what the thoughts are about. The practice is the same. And to deal with thought, we need to begin by acknowledging it. And the way we acknowledge thought is by noting it. So when we're aware of the breath and a thought arises, we turn our attention towards the thought. So we're not trying to avoid it. This isn't a battle between focus on the breath and thought. There's the thought arises. We turn towards the thought, we witness it, and we say in the mind, thinking, thinking. And then continue noticing the breath. And then thought will arise. This is a process of witnessing thought. So it's not the typical modern mind's response to thought. We want to move our attention towards the origin of the thought, wherever it is in the three-dimensional universe. If it's the inner dialogue, all sound originates in a place. It's above you or behind you or in your head or to the left or to the right, or wherever it happens to be. If you have an inner dialogue, you're listening to that place. There's music in the background here. I can detect where it is. So I move my attention towards the origin of the music. And this is the same with thought. Thought arises. We move our attention towards the origin of thought. And we're acknowledging it when we say in our mind, thinking, thinking. And what we've done is we've captured the inner dialogue. The inner dialogue, yada, 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 thinking, thinking, yada, 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 thinking, thinking. And when we have the inner dialogue, and it's an intentional mantra, which is what we're doing when we say thinking, thinking, we can do this thing, which is this. Listen to the sound of my words. You can say in the mind, thinking, thinking. Notice the silence between the words. That's noticing the breath, witnessing thought, moving towards it, not away from it. If you're a visual person and your thoughts of images, you're witnessing the images, and then you create an image in your mind, neon words that say thinking, thinking. And then back to noticing the breath. So the breath is the center of our awareness. It's keeping us in the present moment. So therefore our awareness of thought is in the present moment. Thought arises, constantly aware of the origin of thought, where thought's coming from. Above us, below us, behind us, in front of us, within us, doesn't matter. We're gently monitoring that point of origin. When it arises, thinking, thinking, back to the breath, repeat. This is ancient, it's called noting thought. I'll practice this for 3 minutes. I'll time it with the bell. Checking in with the body, you're just letting the body tell you where the tension is. So it'll be back in the neck and the eyes and the jaw and the hands. And that's fine. You're noticing it and you're releasing it on the out breath. This isn't doing something, you're just noticing where the tension is as you breathe out. Gently let it out. Noticing the breath. Thought arises, thinking, thinking. Back to the breath. move into another meditation, but noticing this sound, releasing your mind. Just allowing the mind to be free and remaining aware of the breath. What we can do now is counting the breaths, which is also ancient. And again, we're using the inner dialogue, the same inner dialogue that chatters. The voice you use to beat yourself up, that one, that's what you use. And you say in your mind as you breathe in, 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath, 3 on the in-breath, 4 on the out-breath, up to 10. When you get to 10, return to 1. When you lose count, return to 1. So counting each in and out breath, 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath, up to 10. Reach 10, return to 1. Lose count, return to 1. It doesn't matter how many times you lose count. It really doesn't. That's not the purpose of the exercise, to get to 10 or not. It's all about becoming familiar with the mind. This is just a tool to be familiar with the mind with. We'll practice that for the next few minutes. Whichever meditation we do, from time to time we need to check in. Check in with our posture, open, balanced and relaxed posture. Let some tension out, return to the practice. so connecting to however it is you feel, your entire body, the sensation of being pushed down into the ground. Notice what your posture's doing. Notice where there's any tension. So let's say I notice tension in my neck. I'll try to release it through changing my posture before I release it by focusing on it as I breathe out. And now we can investigate the power of the in-breath and of the out-breath. So we're just breathing normally, and we're noticing the in-breath and the out-breath in the belly. And allow the out-breath to empty your lungs. And then a long, sharp in-breath, long, relaxing out-breath. Where did the thoughts go? Long, sharp in-breath, long, relaxing out-breath, letting the physical tension out of your body. If the thoughts are very powerful, if the narrative is powerful, that's how we can cut into it. You cannot think when you're breathing in sharply. Simple as that. If you're focusing on the sensation in the nostrils, silences the thought. As you breathe out, you're relaxing your body. You're moving into parasympathetic mode. You just need to do a few of those. And again, releasing the mind. And we can be aware of the thoughts softly and gently. So they're still there. It's our awareness of them that is soft and gentle. The thoughts will be whatever the thoughts will be. The emotions will be whatever the emotions will be. But our focus on them is a soft focus. And it's a focus that witnesses their passing through time. And if the narrative ever becomes powerful, sharp in breath, long relaxing out breath, and we're coming back to the body. Returning to the breath, this is called. And then we want to intervene in the tension that exists that is a result of the mind. The mind creates the tension. The thoughts, the emotions, our interactions creates the tension. Gently bring your awareness to your eyes, noticing, focusing on the center of your eyeballs. And noticing the out-breath. Right, notice the thoughts in the background. Don't try to ignore them. If thoughts arise and they intervene in your focus on the center of your eyeballs and the relaxation thereof, you can say in your mind, thinking, thinking. Breathing in normally, breathing out. Bring your attention to your jaw. Tongue against the back of the top teeth, gently in contact with the sharp part of the bottom teeth. Just noticing the jaw, you're noticing the out breaths. There may be thought, there may not, doesn't matter. It becomes invasive. Focus on the breath. Release the tension. Or acknowledge the thought, saying in the mind, thinking, thinking. Breathing in normally, breathing out, releasing tension from the shoulders, with the elbows by the side, head balanced comfortably. You can allow the tension out of the shoulders on the out breath. Finger and thumb, very, very gently in contact, the fingertip, thumb tip. If you just do that and leave it there, it relaxes all on its own. But to help it along, breathing in normally, breathing out, scanning down the hand from the wrist down to the fingertips. And then we want to release tension from the entire body. So as we breathe in, remember the long, sharp in-breath. Focus the attention on the space between the eyes as we breathe in. Breathing out, releasing in this order, eyes, jaw, shoulders, hands, down through the feet, into the floor. Sharp in-breath. Space between the eyes, releasing tension, eyes, jaw, shoulders, hands, down through the feet, into the floor. Do that a few times. Again, allowing your mind to be free. Whenever you're ready, gently return your attention to your surroundings. That's all very well and good. You know, here we are, we're sitting here and largely our minds are now calm. Most of us, it will be, you know, some days your mind will be calm when you finish meditation. Other days it won't, and that doesn't really matter. But you know, how do you take this out into your day when you're getting this relentless battering of unhelpful thought processes. All of those practices were essentially one thing. Their focus on the body and building a relationship with thought that allows us to observe it and become familiar and comfortable with it. The more you practice the meditations, let's say like noting practices, thought arises, note it, or counting the breaths when there's a chatter going on in the background, the relationship to thought has to be one of witnessing it, observing it, just like I'm observing all of you right now in here. That awareness, there you are. And there's thought. Right? When it becomes too powerful, we need to bring ourselves back to the present moment. Now, you are designed to do that. This is part of the human blueprint. The human blueprint has everything that's necessary to bring you back to now, over and over and over again. It's just that because of the environment that we live in, it enables us to move away from now into future possibilities, images, memories, thoughts, whatever it might happen to be, and stay there for quite a long time. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. It's sedentary, it's comfortable, there's not that much to do, So you've got this time, and then your mind's drifting, and your thoughts pop into your mind, and one another thought, and it goes on and on and on. Because we don't have wind and sun and rain constantly as part of our present moment experience, there's less to bring us back to now. So what that does is that diminishes the sense of now, the feeling of now, sensory experience of now, and the connection with now. So one of the things that you're all learning as well is a thing called interoception, which is you're becoming more aware of your physiology. If it's a competition between thought and physiology is designed to win in a lot of ways. It's designed to win because our sensory experience of the present moment has been dulled, and when we undull it, it becomes more powerful, and we're able to connect to the body. And the other reason that it's a design feature is because this is how you get out of the way of a bus, or get out of the way of an oncoming saber-toothed tiger, or avoid a venomous snake, or a hostile competitor, or a difficult person, or whatever it might happen to be. Ultimately, the body's designed to take over because high stress actually switches thought off completely. So, life and death situation, there's no thinking. Thinking doesn't happen. What happens is the body responds. So there's all of this is designed, and our modern world pushes us away from it. So this is what you do as you go through your day. You need a few things. You need that breath, return to the breath. That's the first thing. So I'm walking along the road, and I've got the relentless news cycle in my head. It goes away the moment I breathe in. When I breathe out, what I'm doing is it's a connection to the body process. Then there's the mind. I need to have an alternative for the mind other than yada, yada, yada. And that alternative needs to be a word. And the word relates to the general thing that's taking over the mind. So I'm going to use a word whenever I find my mind going into the news cycle, and the word I'll use is recycling. It can be anything. It can be wugumfdamuf. There's a good website called soybomb.com. You go onto that, there's a nonsense word generator, find your word. And whenever the thoughts start, recycling. recycling. You can say that word in your head one more time than the thoughts can arise. You can connect to the body one more time than the thoughts can arise. And so as you're going about your day and you notice you're being drawn away, you're doing this noting unhelpful thought patterns, because the relentlessness of the news cycle is an unhelpful thought pattern. If it's got a parking space in your head, and it might be there in the background, but you want to bring the present moment into the foreground, and then it doesn't matter. It's not that it goes away, that you switch it off, click in your head, gone, gone, gone. It's that it stops mattering, and it starts to become this fuzzy thing in the background, which is fine, and it can stay there, it doesn't matter. It can stay in the background. We don't want it to have us and have our attention, and keep getting our attention back and noticing the present moment, the visual experience, the colours, the shapes, the contrasts of colour, contrasts of shape, patterns, reflection, play of light. It's all there. So this is actually the fact that we've got unhelpful experience and unhelpful thoughts is good, because it's how we learn to get the present moment back. It's how we get our life back from the system that wants to ultimately sell you stuff. It is all about selling you stuff, the relentless news cycle. Selling you concepts, selling you things, places, experience. Have this, you'll feel good. Don't do that, that's bad. Have this, this will make you feel good. Notice all the things that make you feel good, they come with a price tag. Notice that we just cut through it by coming back to the present moment over and over and over again. So the more it happens, the better, because the more practice we get noticing, bring our attention back to now. And then when you're in the greatest adversities, and the life-threatening ones for you and your loved ones, then you've got this powerful toolkit, and you've had all this wonderful practice courtesy of the media. So they are to be, we need to be grateful for them, and the relentless news cycle, because it's our infinite supply of wood that enables us to bring our attention back to now and become experts at it. That's the cutting edge. Notice how it's not soft and fuzzy. It's actually, what do I want my life to be? Do I want it to be unhelpful thoughts, time I wake up to the time I go to bed? Or do I want it to be this? Give me that every single time. Right, so that's it for today.